Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zenon. I'm a 29-year-old digital nomad from Canada. I've been traveling around the world for a couple of years now. And this year I'm trying to make the jump from freelancer to entrepreneur. So at the beginning of 2026, I told myself that I'd like to build one app every month of the year using AI all year long, 12 apps in total, and basically just see where that lands. I mean, at the end of the year, if things work out exactly how I'd like them to, I'll be able to completely replace my freelancing income. And if they don't, then at the very least, I've got some digital real estate and I've gotten a lot better at the skills that are involved in building businesses. And so right now it is May 10th. So that means I've actually published 4 different apps by this point of the year. And so the purpose of this video is basically going to show you what I've been building, how it's been going, how the apps work, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to share transparently how much revenue these projects have generated me and give you all the numbers and a look at the back end of the dashboard here. With that all being said, let's just get right into it and let me give you the first walkthrough of the first app, which is called Grid Time Tracker. It's a Mac app built right in the Mac menu bar at the top of your screen on Mac, and it basically helps you track your time that you spend on various projects. So let's just jump over the computer and I'll give you a full walkthrough. Hey guys, so as I mentioned, this was my first app of the year. It's a Mac app and it lives up here in the menu bar. So it just has this little icon here. And the purpose of this app is basically to help you track your time among the various projects that you do on your Mac, whether that's working, whether it's projects, activities. Myself, I think it's really useful to track your time between clients. You can also track it for app development to understand how much time you're spending on the actual building of the app versus the marketing, the bookkeeping. If you run a business, you might spend a lot of your time on admin, like invoicing and stuff like that. And so if you're trying to get a better understanding of where your time is going, then that's what this app is basically trying to solve. So this was my first app and I'll show you how it works. So there's a couple of different tabs here. On this main window, you don't actually have to have the window open, but then there's also this popover up here. So basically what happens is in this popover, you just hit the play button and then you choose which activity that you're working on. So for example, let's just say that we're working on editing content. The timer starts going and then you just do your day. You start working on stuff, and when you stop working on something, you can hit the pause button and then you can start working on something else. And it's basically going to track your time on those various activities, and each activity is nested under a project. So right here you have the different projects. All of these are fully editable, of course. You can add your own projects and organize your workspace exactly how you want it to be organized. But then yeah, each project can have various activities underneath it. You can also delete the activities, delete the projects, rename both parts, and there's also a trash in case you delete something that's important. Next up we have the charts tab. This is my favorite part of the app, and it's part of the reason why I built it, is because I wanted to have these little cool heat map charts. If you've never used GitHub, this is a very famous feature of GitHub, which is a coding kind of like cloud storage, like a Google Drive for your code. That's what GitHub does, but they have this really cool chart, which is this heat map chart. And basically the lighter the cells get, the more time you spent on working on a certain activity. So here you can organize it by, your various projects. You can just show app development, or you can just show coding specifically. And then it's going to give you a heat map, and then the brighter it gets, the more you worked on that certain, whatever is selected relative to the other ones in that period of time. Speaking of periods of time, you can also organize it by month. You can organize it by year. You can go back in years. And then the default is just entire year. I think that's the most productive version. Let's go back here. We'll go back to 2026 and we'll just hit last 365. And then there's also 2 different versions of this, this chart. So you have the bar chart. Pretty self-explanatory. You can just see how much time you spent on your activities there, along with the total. And then you have a pie chart. So if you're wondering how, what percentage of your time you're spending on various activities, there you go. Same thing within a certain project. And then there's also an image feature here, so you can actually export the image and export a screenshot of this graph automatically through the platform. It'll land wherever you choose, and then you can share that on social media, which is, I think, pretty cool for building in public, or even getting an idea of what you're spending your time on and then sharing that with whoever that may be. Next up, you have a history tab. I thought this is very useful because I've used other platforms that track your time before and there was not a history tab. So if you add a session, because one of the features here is that if you forgot to add a session or if you weren't tracking your time, you could just go back here, click design, and then say you worked, 23 minutes earlier today. And then boom, it adds in there. But if you forget to add a session and then, 10 minutes later, you're wondering, did I already add that? It can be tough to tell exactly what happened in the history. So that's what the purpose of the history tab is. And then of course you can choose which date range you want to look at and then organize oldest to newest or certain projects. Next up you have your preferences tab. So you have stuff like light mode, dark mode. It also changes the color of the popover, of course. I prefer dark mode, 24-hour clock format. You can choose your time zone, what day of the week your day starts on, Sunday or Monday. You can choose to ignore small sessions, like if you start the timer and you work for 30 seconds and then turn it off, do you really want to count that? You can choose to ignore it if you'd like to. And then you can also choose the color of the charts. So for example, we can go back to here and have a nice purple. So I thought that was a pretty cool little customization feature here. And then you can choose also how many days the trash is valid for, kind of just admin there. Another cool feature is the last tab is the export data feature. So you can choose the date range that you're looking for. There's also a little picker right here, so you can choose a last 30 days. And you can export all of your sessions however you want to in the format that works best for you. So if you're working with code, you might want to export it in JSON. If you're working with something like a Google spreadsheet or something like that, you can export it as CSV. And then you can choose to export, 3 different types of export session details, just giving you a breakdown of what you've been working on, project summary, so basically group it by the project and then show you the dates and the work sessions within that project, or just the daily breakdown divided by day and then showing the various sessions of work that you did for that. Then you can choose which projects to include, and that's basically how this all works. And yeah, that's the first app. Pretty cool. It's probably my favorite app out of the bunch, to be honest. It's still unmonetized. Cut that out. Don't put that here yet. It's probably my favorite app out of the bunch, but moving on, let's show you the next one. All right, guys, this is my second app of the year that I built back in February. So it is called GoalBar, and what it is it's basically trying to give you a nice visual home for your goals to live. So personally, I was using Notion to store all my goals, but the problem was that Notion is such a mammoth of a platform just for something as simple as tracking your goals, and I just wasn't organized. So I had basically, 5 different pages of different goals for the same year, So my resolutions would be on some page, my goals would be on some page, I'd have another set of goals. It was basically just a mess. And so I wanted to create an app where goals can just live and have a home dedicated to themselves that gives it a nice, easy to track visual interface for you to track your progress. So that's what I built with GoalBar. So as I mentioned, it's only on iOS, iPhone at the moment. Here's what it looks like. So nice clean interface. Basically the goal of it is that you go through it and then you can create your goals. So for example, there's metric goals, binary goals, and then manual goals, which are just kind of harder to track through numbers. So for example, let's start off with a metric goal. I want to build 10 apps in 2026. Let's just skip the description for now. I'll set the target as 10 and then I will continue. And then by the end of the year, let's go December 31st. And then for category, I will just let's say business and create the goal. So here you have the goal and it's quite easy to update the progress. Let me just I've put 4 in there and then boom, we've already got 40% progress. And then in the bottom here, you can see the history. You have a couple of different options like setting up reminders to basically check in. You can edit the categories. You can pause a goal, say if you're not really working on it at the moment and you don't really care about it anymore. You can mark it as complete. You can archive it. You can see the progress history. You can delete it, of course. And then you can also customize the emoji that you see right here. There's a couple of other features as well. For example, right here you can choose dark mode or light mode. I'm always a dark mode kind of guy, just prefer it. So here's what it looks like in dark mode as well. I'll show you what the binary goals look like quickly. So binary goals would be, let's say, what's a good binary goal? Finish coding course. All right, let's just go with that. Let's change the emoji real quick and let's choose something coding related ideally. Let's go with computer. And done. And then the coding course should be done by, let's say, the end of the month. So here you have this one. And this one, as I mentioned, is a binary goal. It's just incomplete or complete. And then you can see the deadline here, 51 days left. You can add it to a category. It's optional. And then the same features apply. So here you can filter through your goals, seeing the active, pause, completed, or all. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's quite a simple app. There's a couple other features, like I did build this app in 4 different languages, so you feel free to use whatever language is best suited for you. There's also a monthly review if you want to look at your progress for the month. I basically wanted it to make it very visual, very encouraging for you to keep updating the progress on your goals. And then you can also share these screenshots to social media, basically giving a recap of your goals, because I wanted to make the social sharing feature a very core part of the app. Let's go back out of here. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what GoalBar does. Second app of the year, and just my first iOS app ever, first mobile app ever. So just wanted to get the feet wet with something kind of easy that I can kind of grasp, wrap my head around without getting too complicated. But that's the second app of the year. Let's move on to the third app. Alright guys, so the third app of the year is called Comma's Net Worth Tracker. So the basic idea of it is that I wanted it to make it very easy for people to track their net worth over time, because that's something I do. I find a lot of value in it because I want to see that I'm, on track to getting savings goals I want, getting the retirement goals I want, and basically just kind of feeling like I'm making progress in my life financially. And I like spreadsheets. I personally use spreadsheets, but I know a lot of people who just hate spreadsheets. They get lost in it. It's complicated. You're doing all these like functions and stuff like that. So I wanted to create an app that basically helps people who don't like spreadsheets track their net worth. And that's what Commas does. So Commas, if you're unfamiliar with the idea, every time you pass, from $999 to 1,000, you add a comma. If you hit 1,000 to 1 million, that's another comma. That's where the name comes from. So let's take a look at the app itself. So quick right off the bat, it is in dark mode already. I do have a light mode as well. But the core premise of the app is on the home screen, you can see your net worth quite easily tracked. And I will say right off the bat, this is not connected to your banking details. I get that could be cool, but also with all of the banking connections, it gets pretty complicated because you kind of have to. I wanted to create an app that's available kind of globally, rather than connecting to all these like individual banking systems that are only available in the US. I'm Canadian, so we have all of these apps that are just not accessible in Canada. I wanted to keep it simple. I'm not trying to do all the authorizations for the banking stuff, so you do have to update all of your accounts manually yourself in the app. It doesn't pull those data from your credit cards and stuff like that, but I did make it as easy as possible to do that. So on the home page, you have your net worth figure. You can have your goals, which pull in from the goals tab. Below that, you can have a quick summary of your accounts. And this is basically what the app looks like. So your net worth is going to be comprised of all of the different accounts. And this app is built with some key features in mind that I use as a digital nomad. So for example, on the account screen, you can have accounts that are in different currencies. So here's what it looks like, all of your different accounts. They're all organized by category like debt, real estate, property, etc. Bank accounts, for example. And then when you're adding an account, you can choose, let's just say bank account. You can choose which category. Obviously, this would be a bank account category. And you can choose which currency you want it to be in. So for example, I can say that I have a bank account in yen. Which is pretty cool. And then let's just put the initial balance as 10,000 yen. So this account is showing my bank account balance as 10,000 yen, but it's also going to get translated back into the base currency that I have set up in the app. So here you can choose your base currency. So if you're from America, you probably choose American dollars. I'm from Canada, I would choose Canadian. And then whatever accounts I have, even if they're in foreign currencies, will get translated back into my base currency and then tallied up for this number at the home screen here. So the way that this works is I basically created an exchange rate API that updates every day, basically pulls the newest rates from between currencies, between your base currency and whatever other currency you have your accounts in. And then that way your accounts are always translated back to the regular basic currency. As I mentioned, I wanted to make it as quickly as possible for you to update all of these accounts, because clicking in and out of all these different pages just to put it through an update can be a pain in the ass. So on this screen, on the quick update screen, you see all of your different accounts. And this way you can quickly rattle off through them one by one by one by one by one. And you can ideally update all of these accounts in about a minute, minute and a half, depending on how quickly you have that information available to you. Next up, we have the Charts tab. Some quick and easy charts just showing you how your net worth is growing over time. So you got a line chart, that's my favorite. You also have the bar chart, and then you also have the donut chart showing you what your net worth is comprised of. So, obviously this person is very high in property at the moment. As I mentioned, you also have some goals, pretty self-explanatory. Choose what trying to hit and then by when. And then you can also connect these goals to certain accounts on their own. I didn't want to make it just very general so that your goal is just based on net worth no matter what. Basically, the goal is connected to certain accounts. So, for example, you can have a 500K net investments account, and then this one is tied to the net your investments. It's not going to be pulling from your cash accounts, for example. And then, as I mentioned, you have a dark mode, light mode, just to give you an idea. You have 4 different languages as well, whatever you're most comfortable in. The app is, of course, set up in 4 different listings as well. It connects to your iCloud, so all of your devices will be synced together. If you have your 3 or 4 different iPhones, doesn't matter. It's all going to show the same values as long as you're signed in through the same Apple ID. And then you can change your categories and set up monthly reminders to update your balance. And that's app number 3. So this one was kind of like a step forward of app number 2. Another tracker. Did a lot of trackers this year already, I'm not going to lie. But it does involve more complicated stuff like APIs and, I think it has a better interface and delivers more value to the people who are going to be using it than GoalBar does, although they both serve their own purpose. And then, guys, just a quick note on app number 4. So app number 4 was kind of different than the other 3. And so what I did was I basically built a tool that the agency I work with freelancing, a tool for them to use internally, which helps them with their ticketing for their emails and their creatives. It's basically like a workplace management tool, kind of like a Monday.com or a ClickUp. And I'm actually not really going to show that one today just because it's full of like a bunch of client data and I don't want to leak anything that they wouldn't want me to leak. But it is a web app. It is built with a backend from Terso so that people can basically, manage their client expectations, deliverables, and then that'll get funneled into Terso and then the whole team can use that. So that's been a really cool app as well. Wish I could show it off. I'll try to come up with a solution maybe where I can kind of mask some client data and then give you guys a walk through that if you're interested in the future. But for now, I'm just going to leave it as that. And I think now is a good time to dive into the more interesting aspect that I'm sure you guys are curious about, which is how much money have I actually generated from these apps so far and how many installs have I gotten? So let me just pull up the Apple App Store developer program. All right. Wah, wah, wah. Unfortunately, I have not made any money from these apps so far. The good news is that 2 of them are not even monetized yet. Grid Time Tracker and GoalBar have not been monetized. There's no paywalls or anything like that. And it's basically, you can still download this. There's nothing to even charge people for at the moment. And then Commas actually has been monetized, but so far it has not yielded a sale. To be honest, guys, I'm not 100% sure that the monetization is working. I got to check into that a little bit. But yeah, the one thing about this challenge has been that the more apps you build, the more it becomes difficult to maintain all of those, and, advance all of them at the same time that you're working, doing your regular daytime gig. But here's what it looks like on the back end. So as you can see, we've got 93 installs called units for some reason. And then here's what the breakdown looks like. So Grid Time Tracker is the most niche, I would say. Yeah, it is on Mac, obviously. So just not that many installs overall. I think a lot less people are poking around on the app on the Mac store. GoalBar has about 36 installs. I think that it's pretty consistent over the last 2 months or so. And then Commas is the most popular with 49 installs so far. And it's also the most recent app, which is encouraging. So yeah, that's basically what it looks like. As I mentioned, there have been no income from these apps yet. The fourth app, however, the one for the agency, I did sell that app to them for 1,500 Canadian dollars, plus an ongoing retainer of me building out more features for it and helping maintain it. So that is money on the board, 1,500 Canadian dollars. That's about probably 11 or 1,200 USD. So that's real money. That's on the board. It's just obviously not from an app store and not from strangers on the internet. So let me just pull you guys in a little closer. So I think now is a great time to kind of do a recap. So yeah, obviously it is a little bit lame that I have to build 3 apps and we haven't sold any installs recently or any pro plans. 2 of the apps, as I mentioned, are still not monetized, so that's got to be done. I think a Grid Time Tracker personally has the best potential out of the 3 to be pulling in a decent amount of money per month, I would say. Commas is probably a close second. But yeah, I think that the 3 things that I've learned out of this program, this challenge so far, have been number 1, building is important, and you can definitely do that, but distribution is so much more important, I would say. That's funny. There's like some lady on a speaker selling some shit here in Bolivia. I have no idea what that is outside. We can cut that out. I'll just restart this part. So now, guys, I think it would be great to do a bit of a recap here on what I've learned in the challenge so far to launch 12 apps in 12 months. And the first thing is, obviously, it is pretty lame that I haven't actually generated any income from these apps so far. But I'm not in it for the 2-month turnaround trying to get to 10K MRR. I'm not trying to make a quick dollar. I'm basically trying to build a skill set that's going to help me propel myself to the next level and get out of the freelancing gig eventually. So yeah, I do want to make money from these apps, and I'm going to, but that's where we're at so far after 4 months in the game. So that's number 1. Number 2 is distribution is underrated. So you can build whatever the hell you want, but the reality is if you don't tell anybody about it, nobody even knows you exist. Nobody knows you exist, and you can solve their problem, but it doesn't matter because they don't know about you and they don't know how to find you. They don't have any trust in you. So whatever you're trying to do, you got to really think about your distribution strategy. And app store optimization, as they call it, like basically setting up your app to get found in the app stores, that's like a part of it, and you can definitely get better at it. But if you're going to take that approach, I think you're going to have to do more like keyword research and to actually find out what people are looking for and how the market offerings actually serve that niche already. I haven't done that with any of the apps, and I do feel that, a bit of friction there in actually getting these installs. But it is like a learning game, and I'm going to get better and better at it over time. And then obviously I do need to build up more distribution channels and marketing plans because I've done very little marketing on these apps so far. So that's a very important part of it, and I'm working on that. But yeah, a lot of different things to work on at the moment. And then the third thing is, I think that it's underrated to just keep scratching your own itch all of my apps are scratching my own itch, and so ideally, even if I don't get any installs, even if nobody ever really finds out about the apps or it doesn't take off, I'm still gonna get something that I would use or appreciate, or if it doesn't solve my problem, it solves somebody who's close to me, their problem, and I do find value in that just because it's cool to me. If I invent some random app that has no relation to anything about my life, I'm not going to want to look at it. I'm not going to want to work on it. And so I think that it's pretty cool to stay in your own little lane and build something that you think is cool, so that even if nobody else ever finds out about it, you still have that win in your books, and you start to think of yourself as a better person because of that. So anyways, guys, that's the challenge so far, 4 months in. I have a pretty cool app coming out this month. It's going to help people create content more efficiently on YouTube and basically become more consistent with their content creation. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to hit the subscribe button, because I'll be posting a video about that when it comes out. And overall, if you're enjoying the challenge so far, make sure to hit subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share it with a friend or something like that. Yeah, 8 more apps to go this year. Stay tuned. All right.